Once upon a time there was a young girl named Clara who loved exploring the woods behind her house. One sunny morning, Clara decided to venture deeper into the forest than she had ever gone before. As Clara skipped down the shady forest path, she breathed in the fresh piney air. Squirrels chattered playfully from their perches in the branches and colorful birds sang sweetly all around. The further Clara went, the thicker the trees grew until their leafy branches formed a shady canopy overhead. Clara gazed around in wonder at the forest, which seemed to become more enchanting the deeper she went. After walking for some time, Clara came upon a bubbling stream cascading gently over rocks. She paused to take a drink of the crisp, clear water before hopping across the stream and continuing along the path. As she walked alongside the stream, colorful fish swam just below the surface of the crystal water. Dragonflies zipped from leaf to leaf, their shimmering wings catching beams of sunlight that filtered down through the trees. As Clara continued following the stream, she noticed the chatter of squirrels and songs of birds slowly fade away, leaving an eerie silence hanging over the forest. Even the shafts of sunlight streaming down through the canopy overhead seemed to dim. Clara felt a nervous flutter in her stomach, but her curiosity pushed her onwards. After a few more steps down the pathway alongside the stream, Clara stumbled upon a small meadow filled with the most extraordinary plants and flowers she had ever seen. Towering flowers in vivid shades of fuchsia, azure, and sunflower yellow bloomed as large as trees. Intricate mushrooms in swirling patterns dotted the grassy meadow, and the sweet scent of the flowers filled the air. Clara explored the extraordinary meadow, wondering if she had stumbled into a dream. As Clara continued farther across the meadow, the colors of the landscape suddenly began swirling together. Clara blinked her eyes hard, but everything remained blurry. She realized with a jolt that the meadow was now spinning all around her. Clara tried to steady herself but quickly became dizzy. A moment later, everything went dark. When Clara opened her eyes, she found herself no longer in the meadow but transported into a whole new landscape. Everything around her seemed to be made of candy. The grass below her feet was soft minty cotton candy. Trees rose up around her with trunks of spiraling lollipops and leaves of sugar floss. Clara even saw a nearby stream flowing with bubbling caramel water. Clara jumped up and began exploring this extraordinary candy land in delighted wonder. She plucked a leaf of sugar floss from a branch and took a taste. It melted deliciously on her tongue. Next, she dipped her hands into the caramel stream and fished out a few chocolate rocks, popping them happily into her mouth. As Clara explored, she saw fields of jelly beans in all colors and gumdrop bushes dotted with bursting gumballs. The candy land seemed to go on forever. Just as Clara was scooping up a handful of gummy pebbles from a pathway, everything around her began spinning once again. The bright colors of Candyland swirled together, faster and faster, until they blended into darkness. Clara felt herself tumbling down, down, down. With a sudden thud, Clara landed on something soft and powdery. She sat up to find herself surrounded by towering snowy peaks. Clara shivered and realized she was now in a snowy winter wonderland. Everything was covered in crisp, glimmering snow, and icicles hung from tree branches shining like crystals. Clara spent the day playing gleefully in the wintry world. She ice skated on a frozen pond, built a snowman, and even made snow angels. As the day went on, she began to feel quite cold from the frosty air. Just as she was wishing she had her cozy sweater from home, the winter world started spinning too. Clara closed her eyes as the snow whirled around her. This time when Clara opened her eyes, she was surrounded by churning dark waves. She found herself on a small dinghy lost at sea. Up ahead, Clara spotted land. An island rose from the sea with a high volcano peak at its center. She grabbed the oars and began rowing toward the island through the choppy water. When she arrived on the tropical island, Clara found sandy beaches with palm trees swaying gently in the breeze. Brightly colored parrots and monkeys chattered from the trees overhead. Clara followed a winding jungle path deeper into the interior of the island, stumbling upon ancient temples and ruins covered in vines. Though the island seemed deserted, Clara felt she was being watched. Finally, she arrived at the base of the volcano. Lava bubbled menacingly from its peak. Just as Clara was considering whether to keep exploring or turn back, the island started spinning violently beneath her feet. Clara crouched down, squeezing her eyes shut as everything shook and rumbled. The loud churn of the volcano faded away, replaced by still silence. When Clara opened her eyes this time, she found herself back in the bright and colorful meadow where her journey had begun. Had it all been just a daydream? As Clara stood up and brushed the grass from her dress, she noticed something sparkling on the ground next to her. She picked it up. It was a crystalline snowflake charm on a delicate silver chain. Clara fastened the charm around her neck, knowing her extraordinary adventures had been real. As the sun began to set, Clara followed the stream back through the forest toward home. She skipped along clutching her snowflake charm, eager to write down her magical tales before they faded from memory. Clara decided she would keep the necklace forever to remind her of the incredible journey she took that day through lands near and far, all from the enchanted forest in her backyard.